So this is Daniel Morgan with Propelio.com, your #1 resource for websites, lead lists, MLS comps, and other marketing tools to help you with your real estate investing business. This is the pre-foreclosure class inside of the Propelio Academy, and today we're talking about what to do at the appointment when dealing with your foreclosure sellers. As I have said many a times, rapport will buy more houses than money ever will. I have, in my personal opinion, developed more relationships with sellers that turned into contracts than just blow and go appointments where I show up for 5 seconds, I throw an offer in their face and I walk out the door. I would spend the time to figure out what was motivating the seller, and if it took me 2 hours at an appointment, it was 2 hours at an appointment, but I did not leave until I got that contract. But a big chunk of that came from being able to build the rapport, find out their needs, and moving forward from there. There are tools to review. Now, I'm not going to pretend as though I'm some NLP expert, neuro-linguistic programming. I am not an extreme expert at that, but if you want to get good at this, studying NLP is going to be an extreme benefit to you in your negotiation skills. Beyond that, part of that is what we're going to call mirroring and modeling techniques. And mirroring and modeling is just ways to see how you are tracking with that seller and it's just subtle cues, such as if they cross their arms, do I cross my arms? And that's me following them. And then I might uncross my arms and then see if they do. And if they do, maybe they're following me. And it's just like little subtle hints and cues like that. If they're talking really fast, do I need to talk really fast? If they're really talking slow and they're just kind of chilled back in the chair and they're just kind of doing this, do I respond like that? If I lean forward, do they lean forward? It seems subtle, but if you're able to make that happen, it works out well for you. A good thing to know when you're going in, and Grant gets really good at this, Grant Kemp there at creativecashflow.com, he goes into the head, heart, and gut. But overall, when I'm dealing with people, I look to see if they're logic-based left brain or if they're very creative and emotional right brain. If I'm able to determine that through a walkthrough, that will help me know how to present the offer in a way that makes sense to them. If I'm coming to somebody that's logic with a bunch of emotion, they're not going to connect and they're going to fall away. Or if I'm coming to somebody that's all emotional and I'm hitting with them with nothing but logic, there's going to be a disconnect and it's going to be difficult for me to make that sale. So try to figure out if we're dealing left or right. And then, so as I'm touring the property, I'm always going to want to do this with the seller. I mean, when I first approach the house, I'll take a couple of knocks, maybe ring the doorbell, take a few steps back away from the door so I'm not imposing upon the seller's space, get through the initial introductions, and then after I feel the rapport starting to build, I'll go ahead and ask, do you mind if I come in if they haven't already invited me in? As I'm going through the house, it's all about rapport. I want to immediately go in, not even really discuss the house. I'm going to want to try and target things that, when I'm going through the house that I can connect with. Let's say as soon as I enter, I see a picture of a United States Marine right there on the wall. Well, my brother enlisted in the Marine Corps and I've got a connection there. That gives me an opportunity to open up and start discussing this with them. And that once again builds onto the rapport. Let's say I go in the front door and I've got a little dog or some cats or some animals, and I have animals too. I'll start trying to create conversations to ease the tension off of the house. I'll immediately just go in with that initial intention of where can I find a connection to create the rapport. After I go through all that, it's going to be continuously working towards building the offer, but I'm in the house and I'll say, hey, do you mind if I go ahead and go through the house? Maybe you can give me a real quick tour. If they try and backpedal and it's like, oh, just go ahead and go look through yourself. Nope, I'm going to get them to go with me as much as I can. I will say, well, I'll have a couple of questions as I'm going through. If you could help me address them as I'm moving forward, get them to go through the house with you, because it's once again an opportunity for you to go further into the rapport building process. And it will also give you the opportunity to build upon your offer. What I mean by building upon my offer is, let's say I'm touring the property and I see something, or I see some things. It's an opportunity without even directly, getting into negotiations yet, building upon my anticipated value. As I'm going through, I'm going to take detailed notes and photos for my files. This will do a few things. Like if the seller's sitting here watching you take all of these photos, take all of these notes, they're going to see you as being more professional and detailed. It's a potential way of creating a sense of professionalism around yourself. I always look for clues hidden behind the seller's motivation. Try to ask as many open-ended questions as you can that will get them to start talking. And as they talk, you might find out what the motivations are without you ever even having to ask for them. Ask a motivating question like, or an open-ended question like, so what's taking you, or what's got you in this situation right now? Very simple, open-ended question. And they may just, for all you know, open up the floodgates, and as they're just sitting there talking, you're going through the house and you're trying to pick up on cues as to what's going on in this person's life that has put them into this situation, and you might be able to find a way to resolve that. So always look for clues behind the seller's motivation. Like to bring a flashlight with me, and I'll use the flashlight. This was a tip from Jason Riney going through, and I'll use the flashlight to point at problems in the home. Let's say I see a little watermark up on the ceiling that's off color and it's indicating that maybe I've got a leak in the roof. Well, if I enter the room, I don't even have to mention that there's a problem up there. I just point the light up there and I look, and the seller is going to respond back, oh, that was the leaking air conditioner, we fixed that. Or, hey, that was from a couple of years ago, but we put a new roof on. Well, now I know there was a new roof and I didn't even know that a couple of minutes ago. So this gives me a way of pointing out problems with our house without having to go to the seller and be like, hey, you've got problems here, you got problems there, you got this, you got that. I try not to do that up front. That does not do well. The seller knows the house has problems. You can obviously see that it has problems. Outside of asking open-ended questions to say like, let's say I do see some cracks, and I'll be like, hey, can we take a look at this? Have you had these repairs quoted before? That might give me some information as to what the actual cost of that repair was from their quote. I might be able, if it's a reputable company, I might be able to use that in my numbers. If it's something like, oh, my cousin said they'd do it for $100. Well, you got to think about where we're getting that information from. But it just opens up and creates room to learn more about what's going on. Something else that we have there is always ask open-ended questions. I've already hit on that. I kind of jumped back and forth in these slides. And have you ever quoted this repair? These are just good questions to pull the conversation along as you're walking and learn more about what's going on. Okay? I would like to find a place where the seller and I can both sit down comfortably to discuss what's going on. Whether that be a kitchen table, we got some paperwork in front of us. I try not to bring out the paperwork anytime soon. I don't bring out the paperwork until I've got the deal closed. That's when the paperwork comes out for me. But I want some place where we can both be comfortable, because we might be there for a half hour, 45 minutes. I don't necessarily know that I want to do that, kneeling down on the sidewalk at the front of the house. But I try to find some place where we can get comfortable, because it's now time to get contract. Anything I can do to get the contract is going to occur, and I just push, trying to get the contract. But I find a quiet place. And this is something, I'm not going to pretend like I'm some ace negotiator that's gone through 20 years of sales training. This is just coming from my experience and how I worked the deal. You have many different ways, ways to close deals. The better you get at learning the ones that work best for you, and then mastering the ones that don't, is going to be great. It's going to make you a better negotiator overall. I like to listen. Just ask an open-ended question and listen. And by listening, that's going to open up the doors to many things that I might not necessarily know, like some of these creative strategies we've talked about in some of the other lessons, the advanced possibilities or other classes, where we're starting to pair up, okay, well, what if I buy it from you and let you live here for free for the next 5 years? Or what if I buy it, sell it back to you on a wrap, and then turn around and do it like that? Or you've already abandoned the house, how about I just purchase the deed from you, take it over sub 2 and turn it into a rental? By finding out what they like, don't like, I can structure offers tailored to them. And the way I do this is I listen. The only way that I'm going to know what they want is if I listen and I ask the right questions. So I do try my best to listen. If I go in past that, you need to focus on their needs. It doesn't take much to see through somebody that's, there for nothing other than to take as much from you as they can and then leave. I like to create scenarios that are beneficial to all parties involved. If somebody comes up to me like begging, saying, hey, can you sell me, will you buy my house for 20 grand? And I know for a fact it's worth 50. Yeah, I'm still going to buy it for 20 grand. I'm not going to sit there and say, no, I don't want to buy it from you. But what I'm saying is, if they're asking for 20 grand and I know I could pay 50 for it, I'm not going to sit there and try and renegotiate them down to 8,000 just because I want to see if I can make some more money. Maybe that's right, maybe that's wrong. Some people would argue with me on that. I believe if it's a deal for them and it's a deal for me, we both win, move forward. There's no point in trying to just milk them for everything they've got. Acknowledge their emotions, memories, problems, and fears. It will help you move towards finding the solution. Fears like, I'm scared of where I'm going to go. You solve that problem, you got the contract. Problems, I don't have a job, I don't have this, I don't have a car. You'd be amazed at how many contracts you could get just buying somebody a car. A lot of the times in pre-foreclosure, you'll have a husband and a wife that are married. They get divorced. It was a dual income family paying for this house. In the judgment, one of the two parties wins, and they are now the owners of the house, but they are now also responsible for all the bills and maintenance of the house that they cannot afford on a single income, and now they're in foreclosure. What you will find as you're going through foreclosure is a lot of these people have been in divorce, and they're financially strapped, quite often mothers with children, and they've lost their car because they couldn't afford one. So now they've got the children, they've got school, they've got the job, they've got the house, they're struggling. If you can just say, you know what, let me go out and buy you a vehicle so that way you can get around, it'll be cash, I'll get you a car so that way you can get back on your feet again. You can move back in with your aunt that lives down the street. You'll have a car, you can get a job, that'll be a better situation for you to be in. And there you go, you got the deal when really the only problem they had was, I really need a vehicle. And if you just say, okay, here's the car, boom, you got the deal. So think outside. So find out what the problems are. In that scenario, the problem wasn't the house. It wasn't much other than, yes, money, but the money was for what? The money was for a car. They needed a car, solve the car problem, and you're good to go. Memories. There's been times where I would be negotiating and or dealing with a property where we have the survivor of a decedent, the survivor of a spouse. The spouse has passed away and they can no longer afford the house, but they're holding on to the house for those memories. If I can pick up on that, I might be able to replace those memories with new ones and get them to let go of the house so that they can be in a better position and move someplace that they can be that is more affordable, where they can appreciate and enjoy what they've got going on. Emotions, scared, excited, fear, just kind of pick up on overall how are they feeling, and then you might be able to, if they're in a bad spot, try and pull them out of that bad spot and put them in a good spot. Or if they're overly, who cares? It's like, okay, I'm going to foreclosure in 2 weeks, no problem, I'll figure it out. With those people, they're probably a little too happy. You might need to push them a little bit towards the fear side of like, you do realize in 2 weeks you're homeless. They might not quite catch that. They don't know what's about to happen and they're ignoring it. Get them back to the reality on that. Okay? Make a genuine effort to connect and solve the problems. I think I've already gone through this enough. I am much more of the mindset that it needs to be a win-win. I'm not going to sit there and say if somebody's offering me a $50,000 house for 20 grand, I'm not buying it, but I'm not going to take and go back to that person and be like, hey, I know you want 20, but I can't pay more than 8 when I know damn good and well I can, and I've already got a good deal on the plate. Make a genuine effort to connect, solve their problems, help people. As a real estate investor, your business should revolve around helping people. You are definitely there to make money. I will never try and hide that behind a larger goal, but you do need to make money in this business, but it doesn't always have to be at the sacrifice of somebody else. You can create win-win scenarios that allows you both to walk away in a very happy way. It's obvious to them if you're only there for the money. That's where the rapport comes in. That's where the building the relationship comes in. That's where win-win scenarios come in. So try not to just come in there and bulldog your way through it. It can work. That does work for some people. That's just never been my tactic, and I'm not really fond of it. You may need to fill the role of tough love. I quite honestly would say a big chunk of the people that I deal with in foreclosure is dealing them a dose of reality, and that dose of reality is what ends up creating even more rapport because you're just straight with them. You're not saying it from a negative. It's like, hey, you know, you're being stupid right now. You don't do that. You just say, hey, this is the situation you're in, and just hitting you straight. You know, you're putting yourself in a situation, you and your family, that in the next couple of weeks, you're giving all of the control over to the people that are causing you the problem right now. You're saying, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Banker and attorney, you have all the control. You tell me what's going to happen with my life. You're putting yourself in a bad spot there. How about you take that control back? You be the one to make the decisions. You be the one to negotiate, and let's work together to get this taken care of so that way you can walk away from this in a better situation than what you would be in if you let that bank just sit there and rule the day. Just different ways of pushing it off like that. So the next thing that we're going to have to do after we've gotten into this mode, we've got this mindset going, is that we're going to need to make the offer. And that's what we're going to be discussing next in the Propelio Academy, brought to you by Propelio.com, your #1 resource for websites, lead lists, MLS comps, marketing tools, and many other things that you need to check out from us. This is Daniel, and thank you for tuning in.